de gente que se chateia com jogos para outras pessoas que se chateiam com jogos. Portanto, a Alana Pierce aparentemente fez um vídeo a dizer que há pessoas que estão a tentar despedi-la por causa do Starfield, ok? E é isso que vamos ver. Ganda Goat, como é que estás, man?
Pops up every few months, and before we get into today's video, I would like to state that usually I don't even see it. I have no idea if there's some Twitter thread about me or Reddit or 4chan or whatever else, unless I am told. My mentions are so filtered that I...
Pá, eu não consigo pôr mais baixo. Não está nada muito baixo, desculpem. É porque eu não tenho o som nas colunas. Peço desculpa. Aliás, eu nem percebo porque é que baixei o green screen. Espera lá, vou subir outra vez. Pronto, bora lá.
I literally just have no idea this is even happening. And if people do tell me enough that it's happening, I generally don't care. And the reason for that is because I frankly feel like I am too old, and I've felt that way for a long time. Like, I'm not worried about what someone's saying about me on YouTube or on Twitter. I am a grown woman with bills to pay. I'm worried about taxes. My sister had a baby.
É um bocadinho, Martinho. Eu concordo absolutamente com aquilo que estás a dizer, mas olha, não sei já mais como reagir. Tipo, não sei mesmo o que é de dizer já. Pá, eu tento, eu esforço-me para tentar perceber, mas não consigo. Não consigo mesmo. Nesta situação em particular não consigo. Pá, desculpa.
Baby yesterday. Like, I couldn't
Eu
be
até
less
costumo ser bastante
concerned
compreensivo.
about, like, what some dudes are tweeting. You know? So I don't ever read any content about myself at all. But this one time I wanted to make a
Sim, é
video
mais
about
vale.
it,
Basicamente é isso,
just to,
Burros.
like,
Mais vale.
say my piece, because this is starting to happen so frequently. And I'm like, let me just say the thing and then get back out and, like, go back to minding my own business. There was another guy who was like, I'm so sorry about what all the PlayStation Brazilian fans have been saying to you. I don't speak Portuguese. A, wouldn't have known it was a thing if you haven't told me. B, wouldn't have understood it. Thank you. That is a nice thing to say, but literally will not know it exists unless you tell me. I'd prefer...
Espera, são gajos brasileiros que estão a fazer isto?
About what all the PlayStation Brazilian fans have been saying to you. I don't speak Portuguese. Let me just say the thing and then get back out and, like, go back to minding my own business. There was another guy who was like, I'm so sorry about what all the PlayStation Brazilian fans have been saying to you.
Ah, são os brasileiros. Foda-se, mano. Só podia. Ai, minha Nossa Senhora, puto. Não, já estava mesmo a ver, mano. Pronto, resumidamente. A Alana Pierce trabalha para a PlayStation. Acho que não diretamente, trabalha para o Sony Santa Mónica, tipo, basicamente. Quer dizer, diretamente. Trabalha diretamente, na teoria. Trabalha para um dos estúdios da PlayStation, ok? Pronto. E o que acontece é que ela está a jogar Starfield em live stream, acho eu. Ela anda basicamente a jogar Starfield. E os fãs da PlayStation brasileiros estão a exigir aos gajos da Santa Mónica que basicamente despeçam a Alana Pierce porque alegadamente ela não está a ser leal à PlayStation. Tipo, olhem, é ainda mais ridículo do que aquilo que acabou de acontecer aqui, há bocado, ok? É um nível astronómico de estupidez. Pronto. Portanto, basicamente, a Alana Pierce veio-se explicar sobre este drama todo, ok? Portanto, vamos ver o que é que ela tem a dizer.
I don't speak Portuguese. A, wouldn't have known it was a thing if you haven't told me. B, wouldn't have understood it. Thank you. That is a nice thing to say, but literally will not know it exists unless you tell me. I'd prefer you just don't tell me. I'm good. That is the most important thesis of this video, but there's another thing that I want to say as well. So, a particularly upstanding citizen of the internet here tweeted this in response to me playing Starfield. They said, Alana Pierce should be fired for promoting Xbox games on a public platform like this. Extremely unprofessional and demonstrates a lack of loyalty and seriousness to PlayStation, her employer, at Herman Holst, at Corey Pollock. Which, as an aside, Corey and I spent about 10 minutes before a meeting today talking about the stuff we were doing in Starfield and how much we were enjoying it. So good luck with that one. I'm also quite confident.
Ai, é com caralho, que entrada a pé juntos. Portanto, basicamente ela disse que ela e o Corey, que foi a pessoa que esta pessoa mencionou, a exigir que a despedisse, estiveram durante 10 minutos a falar sobre aquilo que andavam os dois a fazer no Starfield. Dois gajos que trabalham na Sony Santa Mónica. Pá, é que sabem o que é, man? Esta malta, principalmente Zucas, os Zucas eu acho que são muito agressivos nisto. Mas esta malta das console wars, eles sentem mesmo que estão tipo numa cena entre gangues, hein? Eles querem fazer as pessoas acreditar que andam tipo, man, gang violence, estão a ver? Tipo, man, tu és um creep, eu sou um blood, andamos a matar-nos na rua. É isto que eles acham que se passa entre a PlayStation e a Xbox. Isto é doentio.
That if I DM Terman and were like, hey, how are you liking Starfield? He'd be like, it's great. But yes, BethesdaNet shared this with me and my reply was, you don't need to share it with me. Like, never feel like you need to share this with me. I don't care. And it happens all the time. Actually, there was one time that it happened where I didn't even know it was happening, that a bunch of people were very mad at me because I love Tunic, until Phil Spencer DM'd me and was like, I'm sorry, this is happening. It's like, I didn't even know. I would never know unless you told me. But yeah, sorry, this is happening. It's like, I love Tunic and know it was happening, that a bunch of people were very mad at me because I love Tunic, until Phil Spencer DM'd me.
Mano, reparem bem na javardice. A Alana Pierce disse que estava a gostar do Tunic e o Phil Spencer, o Phil Spencer, o gajo da Xbox, mandou-lhe uma mensagem a pedir-lhe desculpa por aquilo que se estava a passar. Portanto, reparem bem no nível de javardice que é preciso haver online para isto acontecer.
And was like, I'm sorry, this is happening. It's like, I didn't even know. I would never know unless you told me. But yes, we're going to talk about it very quickly today, just to like get it out there about like how absurd this misconception is. And then I'll just get back to playing video games, because that's what I do. So for reference, I do have this person blocked, which is very uncommon. I only have 700 people blocked on Twitter, and I have 500,000 followers. Like, I do not block many people at all. I would say 50% of those blocks are because somebody did something and I found it funny to block them. Sometimes there are people who I suspect, like this one, I'm not actually sure, I don't know who this is, people will warn me about. Like, they'll have enough people be like, hey, this person is doing this, or like harassing you or whatever. And they've done it frequently enough that I will just go and block them based on someone telling me to. Like, I haven't even seen the stuff myself. I'm like, okay, I've registered that enough people are mentioning this that I should probably block this person. Yeah. In any case, the replies to the tweet are quite funny. You're just like, they had to turn their replies off because people were dunking on them so hard for this absurd take. And it is absurd. This is like just ridiculous.
Oh, mano, por amor de Deus.
And I'm sure most of you know that. But there have been some sane people who've asked me questions about how this works as well. And I'm like, let me just address it. I work at Santa Monica Studio and I love working there. It's the best job I've ever had. I'm so happy there. I love my job. I love the people I work with. Like, I think I work at one of the best game studios in the entire world. That is my honest opinion of working in SMS, I think.
Pá, Santa Mónica sem dúvida é dos melhores estúdios do mundo. Estou completamente de acordo. Portanto, não vejo nada errado aqui.
Incredible. And I work with so many people who have so much talent and experience. And like I said, I think some of the best in the entire industry. That is my stance on the place that I work. Similarly, I also have friends who work at Bethesda, and I have friends who work at Xbox, and I have friends who work at Nintendo. When you work in the industry for a long time, I'm over 10 years now, you end up making friends who work a lot of places. And I think one thing that people don't realize is that the console wars don't really exist inside the industry. In fact, there are people on my direct team at Santa Monica Studio who came from Xbox, who just worked at an Xbox studio. Santa Monica Studio will have people leave who will then go to work at Microsoft-owned studios. Like, I get that these like console fanboys think that there's like this constant war, but the truth is the games industry has people sharing around all the time between many of these companies because there are only so many jobs available in game development.
Foda-se. É preciso mesmo ser burro. Ouçam, mas burro a níveis astronómicos. Para se acreditar genuinamente que as pessoas que trabalham nestes estúdios estão tipo, cabrões dos gajos da Xbox que lançaram agora o Starfield. Ninguém. Isto não acontece. Como é que alguém consegue pensar que isto acontece? É mesmo preciso ser completamente delusional para achar isto.
And if there's anything consistent for all of the people that I know who work
at PlayStation,
or who work at Nintendo, or who work at Xbox, it's that they don't care. The reality of working in game development, or at least my reality, this is my experience. Of course, other people may have had different experiences. I'd be very surprised if any of it differs very much. I'm not talking about people who work in PR and marketing whose like job it is to sell the brand. That's not my job. All I actually care about is doing my job and doing it well. Of course, I want people to like the stuff I'm working on, and of course, I want it to be successful. But I pretty similarly want every other game in the industry to be the same way. Working in the games industry is amazing and exciting, and I've been in it for as long as I have because I love video games. But it's exciting because realistically, the technology is actually in its infancy. Like, we're still figuring out what we're doing. People are making huge leaps every year. The way video games look now is going to look so different in 50 years' time. because the industry still has so much room to progress. Frankly, I see video games as like almost limitless. Because as the hardware progresses, video games can progress. Like, we can't even fathom the kind of games that we'll be playing in 20 years. Everything is about technical limitation, and there is not necessarily a cap
Claro.
on hardware progression. Thus, there is not necessarily really a cap on game dev progression.
Faz sentido.
So when a big game comes out and people are excited about it, the whole industry is excited about it.
Claro, toda a
I'm
gente
excited for my friends who work at Xbox. Like I said, virtually every dev, when something like this happens, is just excited about it. Like a big blockbuster game that's taken 10 years to make and has a huge budget, like everyone else is like, oh my god, I can't wait to play it, let's play it. Corey?
Claro, ou seja, até deve ser interessante para os próprios developers dos jogos terem essa experiência de jogar os jogos feitos por outros developers com um budget superior. Pá, se calhar groundbreaking, cenas que inovam na indústria. Deve ser bem interessante para um developer ver isto. Da mesma forma que é interessante para artistas ouvirem outros artistas e sonoridades diferentes. É exatamente a mesma merda. É só isso, pá. É bué da triste. É bué da triste.
They tagged him, but somebody else shared a tweet where Corey is talking about how excited he was to play Starfield. Like, what did you think was going to happen? It's so absurd. People in the games industry like and care about video games as a whole. I am not concerned about sales or pieces of hardware or content. I am concerned about doing my job well and making a good video game and enjoying what everyone else makes too. I have always loved Xbox and PlayStation and Nintendo. I used to work at Xbox. I have 2 Nintendo tattoos. I currently work at PlayStation. It would not surprise me if I continue to work for all 3 of these companies as I continue in the games industry, because I love all of them. I love the stuff they make. I love that they're making different things. Like, I'm just so happy to be here. And it is not my job or the job of anyone like me to worry about Starfield being successful or not. Like, I just want other video games to be successful, especially when they're single player and don't have microtransactions. Like, that is the kind of games that I want to make forever.
Yeah.
So I always want every other game in the games industry that follows that.
Exatamente, isto são putos que possivelmente não sabem o que é o mercado de trabalho e que não sabem o que é a vida de trabalho e gostam efetivamente do que se faz profissionalmente. É isso, sem dúvida. Completamente, mas sem dúvida, imagina. Não é preciso muito para perceber que isto são pessoas que não têm mesmo cabecinha nenhuma. Completamente, mas sem dúvida, bro. Sem dúvida, sem sombra de dúvida. É absurdo, man. É absurdo. Dá, Ez. Olha, faz uma cena. Vais às configurações, vais à secção do online, no Red Dead, mesmo com o jogo aberto, no Red Dead em si. Vais ao ESC, configurações, online, e tens lá o push to talk. E mudas lá. Consegues.
Same pattern to be as successful as possible. I want it to be a commercial success. So like all these console fanboys who care about this, like again, I know most of you don't, and most of you are rational people. People who actually work in the game development, everybody's just excited about video games, man. Like, they don't care who made them. They're just happy that all their friends who work in dev made something cool. And like, of course you have multiple people who jump between companies, so you will end up working with someone who worked at Bethesda or end up working with somebody who worked at Santa Monica Studio. Like, it's just the way the industry works. The stuff that you think matters does not matter. It maybe matters to a marketing department or a PR department, I don't know. But I can also tell you a little bit of my experience with the marketing PR departments. So when I worked at Xbox, PlayStation still gave me a PlayStation 4 and they gave me early access to games. There was no hesitation there whatsoever. They still gave me access to PlayStation stuff. Now I work at PlayStation, and Xbox kind of hesitated a little to begin with, and now give me access to code.
Muitas vezes até tens malta que trabalha na Samsung que veio da concorrência. Estás a ver? Tal e qual.
For Xbox games, but they did used to give me like all the cool stuff, like the controllers and stuff. I don't get that stuff from them anymore. Like, I clearly was moved around a mailing list a little bit. PlayStation didn't care. Nintendo also didn't care. They gave me everything when I worked at Xbox, didn't care at all. And nobody at PlayStation or Sony at any point ever has ever told me not to talk about games on other platforms. In reality, the thing that I do have restrictions on is promoting PlayStation. I no longer get early access to PlayStation games. I can't do an early impressions of a PlayStation game. I can't do like my first hour gameplay of a PlayStation game. I have to buy all my PlayStation games, and I buy them on release. There was an ad agency in Australia that wanted to pay me to make part of an ad for Ratchet & Clank because they knew I was super excited about Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. But I guess somebody at Sony said no. I think it's like a totally respectable ethical stance of like, you can talk about Xbox and Nintendo all you want. They have never said anything that would in any way disparage me from doing so or discourage me doing so.
É só um conflito de interesses. Ela trabalha na empresa e, portanto, a empresa não quer que ela faça isto. Tem toda a lógica. Faz todo sentido.
Can't get early access to anything PlayStation related.
Imaginem os
fun
fanboys
mailer
saberem
kits
isto.
that a lot of my friends who work in media get.
É que a realidade é mesmo esta, é que a maior parte deste pessoal que comenta estas coisas basicamente não... Pá, eles até... Eles não sabem, meu. O pessoal que comenta estas merdas e que faz estes comentários de pizza de console wars, eles não fazem ideia do que é que se passa na indústria. Não sabem mesmo nada.
Like the newest
Mas
PlayStation
especulam
controllers
imenso.
that they share on social media. I don't get any of that kind of stuff. It's like the opposite of what you think it is. As for if I'm biased towards PlayStation or Xbox, the truth is people have been saying this about me in either direction, in both directions, so passionately for as long as I have been speaking about video games. People have called me a PlayStation shill for the last 10 years, and people have called me an Xbox shill for the last 10 years. It depends which side you're on. I have PlayStation fans get very mad at me because I didn't talk about PlayStation enough. And I have Xbox fans get mad at me because apparently I don't like certain games because they're on Xbox. The Starfield one's been extra fun because it depends which side of the camp you're on. I really like this game, but I have some criticisms of it, right? That's how I feel about it as a person who just is here and enjoys video games. But because my stance is not like all one or the other because I'm a human being, the Xbox fans are like, fuck you, Sony shill. And then the PlayStation fans are like, fuck you, you're obsessed with this game, you love it.
Espera, cerca de 70 pessoas envolvem-se em pancadaria por lugar de venda de castanhas no Porto. Mano, diz-me por favor que isso aconteceu mesmo.
They don't realize that they're both saying the literal opposite thing. And I don't care if people think I'm biased. Again, it's been happening forever. Think whatever you want. But the actual reality of where I land in the video game landscape, as much as I'm sure it's annoying for a lot of people who are console fanboys, is honestly just that I love video games. I love Xbox, I love PlayStation, I love Nintendo. I just really love video games.
Obrigado.
That is how I
Espetacular.
feel. And I want them all to be good, and I'm so happy when any of them are good. Especially, again, if they're single-player microtransaction-free experiences. That is my stance. If you're going to criticize me for anything, it would be that sometimes I get too excited. Like, I can get a bit carried away with how excited I am about certain things, and obviously I share that, and if I have influence on you, you could end up being also very excited. But I can't, like, turn that off. Like, I'm just happy to be here, man. And of course, saying this is not going to change the minds of any of these people. Like, I know that. But I did want to be clear about the fact that, like, wow, why is she allowed to talk about Starfield so much? Like, even sane people have been saying that. Like, people who are not all over the console war brigade. It's not a thing. There's nobody at Sony is ever going to tell me that I shouldn't talk about Starfield.
Pois.
People have wondered if there were restrictions. I'm like, no, of course not. There are no restrictions on me liking video games. All you will ever see from the dev community is people supporting other people's games. It's so weird that you, like, forget that when there's a big release. Like, it's all over Twitter. People with PlayStation and people at Nintendo are loving Starfield. That's just the way it is.
Está a ser demais. Tipo, esta cena do Starfield está a ser ridícula mesmo. Tipo, parece que há uma campanha. Man, o tweet que eu vi hoje, eu sei, eu não me dei. O tweet que eu vi hoje de um gajo a dizer: estou farto, não há homens brancos suficientes no Starfield. E eu assim, eu não acredito nisto, não pode ser. Esta porcaria toda da diversidade, não há homens brancos, eles estão a pirar os homens brancos. Eu assim, what the fuck? Mano, eu depois fui ver, tipo, fui jogar, eu hoje entrei no Starfield e pensei, será mesmo que não há homens brancos no Starfield? E comecei a contá-los. E eram carradas deles numa cidade a boés. Por todo lado. E eles assim, até as seguranças são todas mulheres. E eu assim, bro, tipo, mano... What the fuck? Mano, é pessoal mesmo doente, estão a ver? É pessoal que não sei, meu, eles ficam indignados com tudo. Eu estou-me a cagar para essa merda, só quero jogar o jogo. O que é que me interessa a mim se está a porra de uma cena a perguntar-me se eu sou he, her, she, them? Eu não quero saber. Eu só quero jogar. Eu quero lá saber disso, meu. Pá, quero lá saber dessa porcaria, pá, que chatos do caraças, meu. Fogo. É pá, que arranjam tudo para criticar o raio do jogo, mas é demais. É demais. Pá, é que eu nem sequer... Eu nem defendo que o Starfield deva ser jogo do ano. Acho que há muitos outros jogos que deviam ser melhores, que são melhores ou que saíram melhores do que o Starfield este ano. E eu estou a adorar jogar o Starfield, mas para mim o vencedor justo é o Baldur's Gate. Efetivamente. Agora, pá, man, imagina, what? Porquê? Porquê que é preciso mandar bem abaixo o jogo porque é da Xbox? Pá, por favor, meu. Nossa senhora, eu estou sempre chateado, Alexandre. É demais. Não é que esteja chateado, mano. Tu já sabes que eu sou só efusivo a falar, bro. Eu não estou chateado com nada. É só... Eu acho só isto uma parvoíce do caralho. Então...